Tourism, a word that has become almost obsolete in these pandemic times. But many of us still remember the good old days when tourism was part and parcel of life, be it overseas or local. And of course, when I say tourism, there is that one place in Singapore that we cannot ignore. An entire island dedicated to fun, Sentosa. So, when I say Sentosa, what is it that comes to your mind? Is it the luxurious hotels, the exciting rides and attractions? Or maybe it's the spotless beaches for you to swim and have picnics in. But do you know what else can be found in Sentosa? Lots of trash, microplastics, and danger to wildlife. But does tourism always have to look like this? Does tourism always mean having fun at the cost of the environment? Good morning, everyone. We are Dana, Junsheng, and Rayson from Reimagining Tourism, and today we are here to reimagine tourism on Sentosa. By now, you would have realized the key tension that we are working with. How do we encourage more environmentally friendly and sustainable guest experiences on Sentosa? There are a lot of facets to this question, and our group has tuned in onto the biodiversity aspect. In this regard, we have identified two main gaps that need to be addressed. The first would be a lack of awareness regarding the life that the island supports. After all, the island is seen as an expendable commodity rather than home to wildlife that needs to be preserved and protected. On the other hand, we have the near opposite issue, where environmental enthusiasts who wish to learn more about the wildlife on Sentosa end up stressing the life on the island. In light of this, we present our value proposition to increase awareness about biodiversity on Sentosa among teenagers, and in so doing better protect the life on the island.
So, you may ask, why youths aged 13 to 20? Well, we target teenagers because we have found that firstly, they are more tech savvy and more willing to play mobile games. They are more environmentally conscious, and also, we found that they are more energetic and more willing to commit to these causes where they can create change. So let's give you a quick snapshot of how our game will work. In our game, there's a virtual map of Sentosa that users can explore from the comfort of their own home. It depicts a dystopian reality where, with the hard-hitting effects of human activities such as urbanization and over-tourism impact the wildlife on Sentosa. And this is manifested in the game as enemies that users are tasked to defeat. So what users will do in this game is that they will explore the island, interact with the wildlife on the island, and learn more about them, to answer quizzes, to befriend them, to bring them all together in order to triumph over these pollutive enemies. And so users are continually engaged in the game as they explore the island and they meet new animals. So what are the outcomes? Firstly, the users will learn more about biodiversity on the island, and this shifts their perspectives of Sentosa by appreciating the rich natural habitats on the island. They learn more about how these wildlife are impacted by human activities on Sentosa, and they learn specific actions that they can take in order to better protect wildlife in their own capacity. And lastly, with this knowledge, their experience on Sentosa becomes that much more enriching.
Next up, I will be touching upon our action plan for this project. So, we plan to work within a 1-year implementation timeline, the first 3 months of which will be spent developing our app, as well as embarking on preliminary advertising. The next 3 months will be spent further refining our app development, as well as improving our advertising through different outreach channels. At the end of the first 6 months, we plan to release our app on the respective app stores. However, that does not mean that that will be the finalized version of our app. That does not mean that it will be the finalized version of our app. Here we will continue expanding on our app scope, for instance through adding new challenges and animals for the users to befriend, as well as adjusting for any bugs and crashes that are bound to happen. At the end of the first year, we thus plan to have a finalized version of our app and to review our progress. Now, you may be asking, how do we plan to review our progress? Well, we plan to follow 4 key metrics: app downloads, in-app analysis, public feedback such as surveys, as well as feedback from our partners such as Sentosa. Now, how do we plan to make this project a success? Well, we plan to work within a budget of about $46,000, the majority of which will come from the external app development company that we are hoping to partner with. We also plan to gain some funding from Sentosa who have expressed their support for our project in previous meetings with them. Next, we were also moving on to our cost. We also plan to have about the majority of our costs at $30,000 to $40,000 for the cost of app development, while we also plan to cut down on our costs such as advertising through reaching out to schools instead and having physical advertising on Sentosa such as the setting up of posters. So ultimately, as the issue of climate change grows ever more paramount, we and the entire world need to be able to find the right balance between human activities and the natural environment which they are built upon. And that is why we are here today, to do that in our own capacity, starting with Sentosa. Thank you.
What was the response like, and how did they think what you were doing would fit in with what they were doing? Because, I mean, they have a whole lot of programs too, right?
Okay, so we had previous meetings with Sentosa, and basically what they told us was that upon sharing of our project and our ideas, it actually sort of quite aligned with what they were currently doing in terms of, championing the natural environment and wildlife that is found on Sentosa. So for instance, Sentosa currently has some nature trails as well, and they told us that they think that this project can actually fit in quite nicely with such initiatives. So one of the advice that they gave us, which is what we have also reflected in our presentation, is that they advise us to actually come up with the conception of the idea of the app and then pass on this idea to an external app development company which will be able to better refine the app and how it's going to look like. Yeah.
Just wanted to add on to the question and follow up on your answer. So in terms of then talking to Sentosa, and they say, okay, go to the web developer, we get something out. What is the long-term partnership with Sentosa like? So they say, okay, now we'll then use your app, because I think ultimately for this app to be used and to be to have a sort of a longer life, I think you need to also consider how this might take away or compete with what the guests wanted to do. On the island, they might have come and wanted to just go to the beach rather than just use your app. So you do need Sentosa as a very important partner going forward.
Yeah, I think definitely Sentosa is like a very huge partner that we have to work with, and so in the sense that what we are doing aligns with what Sentosa is doing, we are like sort of, because they have like nature trails. So in our app, which is like virtual and can be played at home, we will encourage users to go onto Sentosa and experience like these nature trails, and we can also link it to our game in the sense that they get in-game rewards. And I guess like in response to the worry about what tourists want to do on Sentosa, I think it's like a shift that we are looking at, and we think that it should happen, and it's something that Sentosa is trying to do as well. In that, like what we've emphasized in the presentation, it's really about balancing nature and sort of like urban fun on the island, and especially because like climate change and like environmental issues are becoming like a lot more important, and Sentosa has set like a lot of goals that they hope to achieve with regards to like sustainability on the island.
As you mentioned about the young adults, that you're targeting, and I really truly believe that it's the youth, right, who would continue this whole mission about environment, reducing emissions, protecting nature, and I think that's the right group to also target. I know we're at COVID, right, and travel is not so often, right? People don't travel that often, but this youth group that you're talking about, is it more for locals one, or for generally for future youth who are coming through Sentosa to explore? Just curious about that.
Okay, yeah. So currently we are looking at more local groups. I think one of our major aims is also sort of to get Singaporeans to realize like the importance of like the sort of biodiversity that's on their in their country, in Sentosa as well. And I think to get like more people interested, we'll take on the sort of like cultural aspect as well, because these kind of like Singaporean games with a very uniquely Singaporean flavor in the development is quite lacking. So like in our like we actually added like a Merlion in there, and we're thinking like it can be an animal like where the Merlion statue once stood. Yeah, I think this will also get like a lot more Singaporeans like more passionate about the game and more participative.
Makes sense, because actually, if staying in COVID time in Singapore, actually you realize that it's such a beautiful country, spaces that you've not explored, right? So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, we have one. We have enough time. Yeah.
Hi, really cute presentation, and thank you for giving all the credits to all the creative people. It's a really great practice. My question to you is 13 to 20-year-olds, I mean, you guys are probably still in that age or just past that age. What is the best way to reach you so that you can download an app? Like, what makes you download an app? I just want to understand, how are you going to get people of your age group to really, get engaged in something like this? So how are you going to reach them? How are you going to market it to them, and how get them to use it?
Actually, the best strategy that works for our age group would be word of mouth. So I think it's like kind of like a group activity also. When friends kind of download a new game and then they are like, oh, this is so fun, they are more likely to share it with like their circle of friends, and that's how kind of like the game spreads. So actually, we've highlighted in the presentation, one of our main outreach channels would be schools, because most people in this age group would still be in schools. And we also want to cut down on advertising costs, so we would like to partner with these schools and kind of emphasize the educational element. And when we partner with these schools, we can also create like challenges for the students to be enticed to download our games. So for example, we could organize either inter-school challenges where we kind of pit students from one school against another school, or like different batches within the same school can kind of compete to see how much they know about biodiversity on Sentosa. So kind of also engaging that competitive element in the game would also allow us to reach out to more students. So really the main kind of channel that will work, especially in the preliminary kind of like the starting phase of our game, would be schools. So we kind of at least familiarize ourselves with the target audience. So even if after the challenges they don't feel as interested in the game for whatever reason, they at least know about it and they can talk to their friends about it. Yeah.
And I think we didn't put it in the slides, but we actually conducted a survey on the YEC website as well. And I think we had about 100 plus responses down there. And many of the respondents actually told us that they'll be very interested in playing this game if they were able to play it with their friends. Yeah. So I think that helped us a lot.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.